All right, now the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial continues today. Mthokozisi Thwala, a close friend of Meyiwa, testified about the events leading up to the fatal shooting of the soccer star yesterday. Thwala says a scuffle erupted between Meyiwa and two intruders that resulted in the shooting. 5 men are in the dock charged with the murder of the football star. Let's take you to Manqoba Mchunu now to just give us an update with the adjournment. Manqoba, I understand that the lunch adjournment had to be taken much earlier today, starting at 12:30 instead of 1 o'clock. Tell us why.
Well, Maseko, this is because of something that came up here in court, which, of course, was raised by the state after they had concluded their leading of the evidence in chief of Mthokozisi Thwala, the state advocate George Baloyi, indicating that they would want to request an opportunity to lead evidence to correct some of the inconsistencies between Thwala's statement as well as testimony in court. And of course, we saw some of the defense lawyers then objecting to this, saying that this was tantamount to an impeachment of his own witness, the fact that he wants to correct these statements prior to cross-examination actually taking place. They want the opportunity to cross-examine the witness, and they're saying that the state essentially has an opportunity to re-examine the witness once that cross-examination is concluded, and that's the opportunity that the state can then use to correct some of those inconsistencies that had been raised. And of course, we saw an argument as far as the defense is concerned, quoting the Criminal Procedure Act, Section 190 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which the state had also used as a motivation for their request, saying that this particular section does allow for the state to actually support the evidence of the witness that is before court. And it speaks of two, in fact, words in that particular section: impeach and support. And the state saying that what they intend to do is to support the evidence that Mthokozisi Thwala has given here in court, so that his evidence is credible before the court. But of course, the defense saying that they object to this. They're saying that the state has simply misinterpreted this particular section of the Criminal Procedure Act. So we had to take a short adjournment for the judge to familiarize himself with the contents of this particular section, but also for the defense lawyers as well as the state to familiarize themselves also with this particular state, so that they can continue to argue this particular section. Of course, the defense is objecting to this. They're saying that the state is merely trying by all means to ensure that it prevents Mthokozisi Thwala from being seen as an uncredible witness here in this particular court. So we have taken an early adjournment to allow those parties to go through this particular section of the Criminal Procedure Act.
What are the inconsistencies, Manqoba, that you have been able to pick up in terms of the testimony by Mthokozisi Thwala that the state wants to go back to now?
Well, it's still not clear, Maseko, at this particular point. I mean, this is a statement that Mthokozisi Thwala had made back in 2014. And of course, the state was just about to go to point out some of those inconsistencies in what he said in court, and the differences from what he said when he made that particular statement. I think it will become clear only when those inconsistencies are brought up in court. But, it speaks to perhaps the positioning of those that were inside the house at the time when this incident had occurred, or some of the contents as far as the crime scene itself is concerned. So we have not been privy to those inconsistencies, Maseko, but safe to say it's something that has to do with the crime scene itself and what happened on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. I think we'll get to hear exactly what those inconsistencies are, should the state be granted that opportunity to then try and correct some of those inconsistencies.
All right, Manqoba. And just lastly, in terms of what he said so far, Mthokozisi Thwala, can you just recap that for us in terms of what happened that night? I understand that now he says he's the one that put pressure on the wound, and I wonder what this means, because there are other people who've also told the court that they're the ones who put pressure on the wound.
Well, Masiko, yes, this was part of the evidence that he had given as far as the scuffle is concerned. Of course, he detailed how Senzo Meyiwa was shot just moments after that scuffle had ensued. And in fact, he says that he was able to run away shortly after the gun had went off. He met Senzo Meyiwa along as he was trying to escape. And he was not sure whether Senzo Meyiwa had fallen at that particular point, but he managed to escape to the neighbor's house, where he later heard screams and had gone back to the house to check what was happening. And this is where he saw Senzo Meyiwa on the floor with a bullet to his chest. He says he had gone to him to look and to lift up his T-shirt. That's where he saw blood gushing out from the wound that Senzo Meyiwa had suffered at the time. But he says that he had asked for towels to try and put pressure on the wound. And in fact, this is what he says happened just after he had examined this wound, and he was given a towel which he then placed on Senzo Meyiwa's wound, and ultimately then rushed Senzo Meyiwa to the car and to the hospital. So I think these are some of the issues that of course are still going to be tested when we get to cross-examination, and we do expect, of course, that his evidence is going to be weighed up against that of Tumelo Madlala, who was also one of the witnesses that was here in court. Of course, he was also one of the people that testified here in court, who was also in the house at the time that this incident occurred. And there have been some statements that have been made. Some of them could be contradictory, but I guess we'll have to hear when the defense does ultimately take the seat as far as cross-examination is concerned, and how they will answer to some of those inconsistencies.
All right, Manqoba Mchunu live for us in the High Court in Pretoria. Of course, we know that the case is expected to resume again. Proceedings are expected to resume again at around 1:30, and we'll take you back to the High Court in Pretoria live as soon as those proceedings get underway.